All right, good morning, team.
Good morning.
All right, this will be a short training, but can I suggest that until we get to the Q&A, let's keep our mics muted because we'll be recording this for further training. So please mute your mics, and then we can unmute once I have finished the session. All right, so we're going to look through a very simple process around capturing data into Odoo, into Icinga, and then what is the significance of that whole process as well to us as service desk people in particular. So I'm going to start a screen share now, and then we can get started. All right, so we'll start in the one most important thing with information in Icinga is that it facilitates quicker troubleshooting or problem identification, as it were. So it's very, very critical that the information that we have in Icinga is up to date and also is accurate and is useful. So what we did a while back during the setup was that we made provisions for extra information that we thought would come in handy for anyone who is going to connect to Icinga and try and troubleshoot a customer circuit. So let me show you a simple example of what we have right now, and then maybe what we want to go to. So we have a case right now, for instance, where CBZ Mutare is down, right? And there's very little information besides that it's under a host group called CBZ Mutare and a comment about CBZ Mutare and an IP there. Okay, so excuse me, this one's actually not down, it's just got high packet loss, 20% packet loss. But it's the same case. What I'm more interested in is the information that is available to us here. So right now, there is no usable information for anyone to start, troubleshooting here. So the same would apply if we picked a customer who is in any other location. This is a customer in Vic Falls. Besides the fact that he's on the Vic Falls POP, there is no useful information here for someone to actually start troubleshooting this customer. So this is the thing we need to try and rectify. So we do have cases like this where there is actually information. However, you have information that's been put on notes here, which makes it very hard to decipher in terms of what actually is going on. So we will be doing away with this because it's actually not functionally useful. This one has a bit of beta capture. So you've got this information here under custom variables. This is what we added to improve our data capture and the information that we store in Icinga. So you've got a CPE Mac, which is the customer's device. We've got a customer ID, which would be the customer ID in Odoo in this case, or probably IBS. You can't actually tell. You have a customer VLAN, which is very useful. You've got an OLT type. You've got an ONU Mac. You've got a POP. You've got the service type. Okay. However, if I'm to troubleshoot, which point do I start looking at here? Where do I start to actually try and troubleshoot? If, for instance, there might be a commonality between this customer and someone else. So there's information here that's missing that we need to be able to do more fine-tuned troubleshooting. So I did do a simple update on my own link, just to show how we would want this information to show. So here we are. So similar information, CPE Mac, customer, VLAN, the OLT slot, OLT type, ONU ID, which is on the OLT. So you already know the ID of the ONU on the OLT. The ONU Mac, the ONU type, which is very important. So this is a 1.0 file home, and PON ID. What is the PON? So now you know that slot 1.2 ONU ID number 7 before you have even logged into the OLT. It was going to save you time in terms of your process of troubleshooting immediately once you have this information available. So this is what we need to make sure when we're capturing our customer data, we have captured this into the Icinga monitoring system. All right, so let's get to the how. So for those who have the permissions to do so, which I assume anyone who has been doing the updates does, you typically go and find a customer in Director. Director is the provisioning part of Icinga, where you add and remove customers. So in Director, you're going to go to the user. So there are simple parameters like groups, which is the member in POP. If there's any other classification for that, so for instance, there is an option of breaking down by PON as well, which I'm not sure is here, but it would be duplication now, since we'll be able to capture this directly onto the custom variables. So the important thing here is that we need to set custom variables. Okay, so there is a whole stack. So this is the custom variables tab, custom properties. So there is need for customer ID or customer code to be updated. This is now most critical because the core network team will be working on linking customers in Odoo to customers in Icinga, so that you'll be able to see this information when you open the customer's information on Odoo as well. So we need the customer code to be available there so that we can easily and quickly update that. So unfortunately, I don't know my customer code. I can quickly check. So I've got a reference in here that looks like that. We'll need to confirm whether we're going to would use the circuit ID here or the customer internal reference. All right, so right now we'll use the customer code, because what's important is for us to be able to use this to search in Odoo for the customer. OLT ID, typically this happens if you've got a POP that has multiple POP OLTs, so by default there's one. OLT slot is 1. Now, this is the information that we'll need to capture. So each customer is comes off a primary splitter and secondary splitter somewhere. This is information we can pick up from patch manager in particular. So you'd say, for instance, let's say, let's get, this is not actual, I'm just doing this to demonstrate, right? Splitter 2, And then the secondary splitter would be Divaris, for instance. Okay. So these are all labeled, so you can get this information easily from Page Manager. PON ID and ONU ID, you actually do have to get these from the OLT and update. If need be, we can do a quick session on that as well to show you how to get this. I will log in and show you this maybe a little later on. And then ONU type, you have to know what ONU, the ONU Mac, obviously this information we've got somewhere. If this is coming off a base station, like in the case of Mutare, we'll then need to specify a kind of base station. Obviously for a WiMAX, this would not apply. Okay, and obviously some of these would not apply, but the rest, CPE Mac address, customer VLAN, oh yeah, so the service code. So this is actually fine. So this is the customer code, and then you'll have a service code here, which is the service code for that particular account. So I've got a service code 2109. And I'll store that. So what I'll do is I'll show you now where to get some of these parameters on Odoo. But this is basically what we need to start updating. So we do need a customer code in there, and we also do need the service code to be updated. Okay. So I think that's simple and straightforward enough. If you do have any questions there, I would suggest just put them up on the chat. Otherwise, then I will move on to the Odoo side to show you how to pull the customer code as well as the service ID. Okay. So let me just switch windows. All right, so this is the Odoo side. So you start with the customer. So let's start the process. I search for a customer, I find the customer. And first thing is if you go to sales and purchases, you're going to find an internal reference. This is the customer code that we uploaded up there. So that's what you put on customer code. All right. And then the service code. So a customer can have multiple service IDs. So if you go to more and go to analytic accounts, you'll find then, so I've got a complementary staff account, and on that complementary staff account, there is a product there with service ID 2109. So this is where the service ID comes from, and then I can update that. So you are literally just reading that information and then updating that on Icinga. All right, so that's how you get that information. As far as getting information from the OLT, I assume this is something we all do. Do I need to speak to this, your guy?
Yes, I think for the sake of going through everything and being thorough.
Yeah, okay, because it might be something that typically would require its own session, but let me get into one OLT quickly.
Okay.
And see if I can then demonstrate that. Can I have an IP for an OLT? Maybe membrane, because I was already logged into, I was already doing. What's the IP for the membrane OLT? . recording this. All right, so once you are in the OLT, a display of the current information will then show you the details about it. So you'd have the ONU Mac, the slot ID, the PON ID, and the ONU ID. Okay, so this is how you'd get this. So you could typically, if you already have, which I assume we do, have a record of all the MAC addresses, then it would be easy to pick this up and then, sorry, I went the wrong. And then update your NMS Icinga with that information. Okay, so that's typically straightforward. They should be aware of displaying the active list. How do I get that? The guys who work with this every day. Okay, so that's typically how you get it for a particular ONU, I guess. Anyway, all right, so that's that. You should then have enough information to capture and store into Icinga. Like I said, the big picture here is that hopefully before end of this coming month, we should have a case where once one is logged into Icinga, sorry, to Odoo in this case, you should be able to pick up more service information here. So what is the customer IP? We'll also be pulling stuff from IBS. So you'd have immediately, once you open a view into what information is available from the other systems on the network. The idea is to speed up the process of troubleshooting. So again, we would look to the team running service desk to come back with, okay, this is useful, this is not useful, as far as information that we can reflect from the monitoring system to Odoo is concerned. And on the long term, we will be able to also make this available to the customer. So, for instance, we'll filter down obviously, but we'll have things like, customer, you can see the state of your ONU if it's up or down. You can see, IP status. You can see your credit status, which we've already built into the Telco Self-Service app. But all the information, so as long as we've got the information stored, we will be able to filter that down towards the customer, so that the customer participates in the first layer of troubleshooting. There's information that they can see for themselves. Okay. So yeah, that's all from me. This is when we can have a conversation about if there's anything you missed along the way. Are there any questions? Okay, your team sounds happy. I take the silence means we are all together here. Okay, so maybe one thing I didn't mention, we do expect you guys to exercise the utmost care when you're doing the capture. All our systems have got an audit trail, so I might just show you that. If you do make any changes, we can track all those changes here. So for instance, there's a change pending deployment that I did, and I can deploy that change into the system. So again, it's handy because if you do make a mistake, the change will fail. Like you see one of these here, and someone had created a bad PE, and so we can still review that and then look at how do we fix that if that change failed. So it's always important to be thorough. If you realize you've made a mistake and you can't fix it yourself, please do escalate and get assistance immediately. So that the idea is to have the most accurate information possible in our systems. That way, we are troubleshooting or we are assisting customers with accurate data. And also, we hope to then, sift this down. We don't want to have so many reds here. We want to be able to track real time what's going on the network. How many customers just went off? Do they have anything in common? And all those kind of things. Okay. All right. So that's all, folks. This will probably become available on the Odoo training. Remember, this is not a public video, guys, because we're actually exposing internal operation systems. So it's not a public facing video. So it will only be available off our Odoo training portal, and it's not to be shared on WhatsApp or something like that, because it's information that can be used by unscrupulous kinds if it goes out there into the public domain. Okay. All right, Tim, thank you very much. And then we'll catch up when we do the next training.